I am the world's biggest super fan.
You're like a super fan.
Welcome to the Business Superfans podcast. We will discuss how establishing business superfans from customers, employees, and business partners can elevate your success exponentially. Learn why these advocates are a key factor to achieving excellence in the world of commerce. We discuss the invaluable insights of business owners who have successfully implemented the strategies in the book to build their own team of devoted superfans. Gain insightful knowledge from the experts who create applications that help you create passionate superfans. This is the Business Superfans podcast with your host, Freddy D.
Freddy!
On this episode of the Business Superfans podcast, I'm joined by Linda Carlisle, founder of ComEXT and a seasoned corporate communications strategist with over 30 years of leadership experience. As a fractional corporate communications partner, Linda helps business leaders, VCs, and private equity firms navigate the moments that matter, from mergers and acquisitions to leadership changes, reorgs, and major business transformations. With deep expertise in culture development, executive messaging, and strategic problem solving, Linda has built a reputation for shaping high-performance organizations rooted in integrity, resilience, and innovation. Through her work, she helps companies successfully integrate teams, maintain psychological safety, and build strong corporate identities that drive meaningful business results. Today, we're diving into the power of communication in business success, how clear, strategic messaging can foster alignment, boost employee engagement, and turn disruptive change into an opportunity for growth. If you're leading a business through change or looking to strengthen your company culture, this is an episode you won't want to miss.
Welcome, Linda from ComEXT, all the way from Chicago, Illinois. Welcome to the Business Superfans podcast. We're excited to have you on the show, Linda.
Thanks. I'm excited to be here.
So, tell us a little bit about your story of where you came from, how you started, and how you came up with ComEXT, and what does ComEXT really stand for?
Yeah. So I'll start with that. First of all, ComEXT is here to be an extension of your team, be it you already have a communications team and need some additional work done, but mostly an extension of your leadership team, your HR team, to make sure that communications are getting done in what I call the moments that matter, which is there are some pivotal moments within an employee's life with your organization where you need to be communicating effectively with them. Sometimes we get so caught up in the day-to-day experience and the pressures of getting business done and meeting numbers and whatever else that we forget to do that communication during the moments that matter. And so I'm there to help with that. I really have a deep passion around that. So when you say, what's my story? I started out my career as a marketing person, a branding person. For the first experience I had in this internal space was a marketing person for a highly acquisitive company. And the leader of that company at that time, his belief was that you come in, you acquire the company, and you break the culture, which really meant breaking the people. The idea was that they would then come in, they'd be meek and mild, easier to manage, get in line, get on board. My job at that time within those acquisitions was to create the scripts for delivering those messages. I just remember thinking, this is just so cold and so beastie, right? Like, why do you have to break people? Fast forward a few years, I moved from being more external branding to actually focusing on internal comms. I then saw companies that didn't do anything to integrate. They said, no, we're not going to break your culture. I've come to believe that the need to integrate companies that you've acquired, it's really important. The need to communicate and make people feel welcome and take the best of both worlds and make everybody feel like your old culture does matter and so does ours. So how do we bond them together? And just all the ways that you can make people feel welcomed, safe, and excited to be a part of a new organization. Those things just really stood out for me, and I have a passion for that. So when I decided to start a business, I had thought about all the different communication things I could focus on. That was really the place where I said, I can do the most good here. I can help companies be successful by making their people feel safe, included, informed, and excited. So all that good stuff.
What you're doing is really important and fantastic because I've gone through some acquisitions and you're wondering what's going to happen to my position. Am I redundant? Most likely you are, because the acquiring company uses their people. And even if you've been in management and you're the acquiree, you're outside looking in because they're going to stick with their team because that's who they're comfortable with. And the next thing you know, you're out the door. Sometimes it's really not the best person they keep. They just keep them because they're familiar with them. But the person that they let go was actually the rock star in that particular company. I've seen it happen, and I'm sure you've seen it happen.
I have seen it happen. I think the best companies, when they're doing their due diligence, they're really trying to say, who do we need to keep from this organization? So they're actually putting plans in place to hold on to the rock stars, especially on the leadership team, right? If there's somebody who's pivotal because they're the one who invented product X or owns key accounts and you can't afford to lose them, there's usually a plan put in place for those rock stars. I think where you really start to see people not doing very well by that due diligence process when it comes to people is thinking about that next level down where there's people who know where all the bodies are buried, if you will, who know how things get done. And if you lose those people because you didn't bother to think that next layer down, and then you didn't bother to talk to them either, the very first thing that happens when you hear your company's been acquired, the question that pops up in your head is, have I lost my job? Am I going to lose my job? And you're worrying about it.
So productivity goes down the drain. You're paralyzed. The whole team is paralyzed. Now everybody's gossiping. What's going to be happening with the company?
Yep.
Is my job safe? Nobody's thinking about the business anymore. Everybody's thinking about what's going to happen because most of the time there isn't any good communications through the whole thing. What you're doing is very important because you're bridging that barrier.
And candidly, I mean, on the one hand, I talk a lot about the employees because that's where my heart's at. And that's what got me into this is seeing it done poorly and the impact it had on people. But I'm also helping the leader, right? Because let's face it, especially if you're in a space where it's private equity that's giving you the funds in order to make the acquisition, you are so on the hook for hitting that number, right? The pressure on company leaders that have made an acquisition is phenomenal. And that's why they're not thinking about the communications piece. And if I can be there to be whispering in their ear about what I'm hearing from people, or if I can be there to say, this is where the gotcha moments are, the moments that matter, then I can help steer them in the right direction, get them thinking about what they need to do to stop the productivity bleed, right? To your point.
Sure. And the brain exodus, because I've seen a company where what they did is they were acquiring somebody. And initially, the whole presentation was they're going to buy the business, keep everybody, all that wonderful stuff. The transaction was moving forward. And at the last minute, they came up with what I would call, I'm not going to say what I really think of it, but it was an inappropriate approach. Let's word it that way. What they did is they says, you know what? We just created a brand new LLC. We're just going to buy the assets of it. This minimizes our liability. Well, what they really meant was they're not going to have to pay anybody what they were paying them because now it's a brand new company. They maneuvered the paperwork legally. They cut out health care. They cut out commissions that people had worked on for years because they basically said, well, it's a brand new company. What you did with the old company is wonderful. We appreciate it. But guess what? You got to start all over.
They make people reapply for their jobs and the whole 9 yards.
Your history, gone. I know this for real because I've seen it happen. A couple of people have been with the company for 20 years and they were panicked and then they lost all their seniority because now, I'm sorry, it's a new company. There's only one person left of that whole company that they acquired. Everybody else is gone.
Like you want to see where that kind of thing has taken place, all you got to do is go log into Glassdoor and you will see how well or how poorly the execution of an integration is from a people standpoint, because when people are treated the way you just described, they don't stay long.
No.
Right. That, especially not the high talent ones. So you're left with the people who, life's a bell-shaped curve. You're left with the people on the other end, the wrong end of the bell-shaped curve, because the people who are highly marketable, they know that, and they'll leave, and they
Yep.
will tell their story on Glassdoor. So
Yep.
I think there's a public perception, there's a whole PR and reputation piece that's part and parcel of this too, because when you go to attract your next batch of top talent, they're going to be reading all that.
And I'm going to wonder what happened to the old talent. Let's go into, Linda, how is it that you work with the company? Let's say you've got someone that reaches out to you and says, our communications within our company just isn't flowing. We realize it. It's been brought up to us. The team has basically said, the left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing. We need some help. We don't know what to do. How do you come in there and turn that around?
So in a perfect world, I'm being brought in at a moment where we are not all the way down already into the place where morale is low and we've not communicated and we've got something that's got to be turned around, right? The reason I focus on mergers and acquisitions is that there's this moment where if inserted at the right time, you can prevent things from tumbling all the way down the mountain, right? But if a company is already in a place where things are not doing so good, I recommend listening to people, right? So my whole approach is based on understanding where people are coming from, understanding how they got there, listening to them, focus groups, a little bit of quantitative, a little bit of qualitative research with your people, listening to them, getting a sense of where they're at and what's going right and what's going wrong. And then using that to understand where's the company coming from and just starting to open up the dialogue, right? If people feel like they don't understand where management's coming from, maybe we can start a series of communications where we're being more open, we're being more transparent, we're sharing more information, right? Leadership has to be in the right place for that. So part of it is talking to leadership and helping them understand what the research and the focus groups and the listening has told me, and then brainstorming on where we go from here, because I'm a partner to the leaders, trying to get the leadership positioned in the right way to help them lead their people in a way that's more engaging.
Yeah, because no people, no business.
Yeah.
It's really pretty cut and dry that some of these leaders don't understand, because you and I have both come across where, hey, they should be thankful I'm giving them a job. No, you should be thankful that they're on your team so that you don't have to do the job.
Well, it's an interesting thing. Maybe like 2-3 years ago, we had the Great Resignation, right? Where people were essentially saying, I'm walking out of here. Now, these things are cyclical. There's always ups and downs where the employees are in the driver's seat and then the company's in the driver's seat in terms of employment levels and where things are at. But at the end of the day, people are really aware these days that nobody stays at companies for their whole career, like when my parents were in the workforce, right? So people are increasingly comfortable with a shorter stay. Each time that turnover happens, it costs the company a lot of money. But you want to try and keep that talent and that mindset as long as you can and really help people be productive. The other thing is, if you can get them to be deeply engaged and believe in you and excited, and those companies that are getting that kind of engagement from their people, their performance is exponentially greater than the ones who are constantly fighting with the people who are miserable and fearful. It's just not a way to spend your career, and people get out of there.
Yeah, and that's where I wrote my book, Creating Business Superfans, because I look at it as leadership's job to inspire their team. One of the things I learned was that my job as a leader was really to be what I would call a facilitator, to make sure that you as my team member are being successful. And my job is to facilitate your success at what you do.
Removing barriers that are in front of you and helping you develop the skills you need.
And the tools that you need and everything else. And if you're successful, I don't have to worry about my success.
The place is growing you, and it's fun to go to work each day because it's a friendly, light, fun, exciting environment where we're taking on the world, we're doing new things. I mean, that's addictive, right? People stay at those.
Now you're creating the super fans of the team. The team is telling all their friends, man, I got a great company. They just threw out a birthday party for so-and-so. We had a company picnic. They created awards for recognition. One of my quotes in my book is, people will crawl through broken glass for appreciation and recognition.
Yep.
Right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
But some companies don't do that.
They don't see the value of it. A lot of companies are just a lot more transactional, right?
I'm a firm believer that an energized workforce,
Yeah.
that energy comes across when we're talking to prospective customers, you're talking to a supplier, you're talking to a distributor, you're talking to a complementary business. And you can feel that. If someone is a prospective customer and gets to somebody on the phone and they're inquiring about the product, and that person's unhappy because they feel that they're overworked, underappreciated, their tonality is going to be flat at best. That prospect is going to go, I just don't feel good about this company. And this is going to be a feeling.
And I got to work with that person every day, right? Like if that's going to be my liaison, I don't know if I want to have this relationship, right?
Right. And so how goes that opportunity?
Is that person going to go to bat for me if there's something going on with my order?
Correct. So share a story for our listeners about a company that you worked with and you transformed that whole communications system to where they're super fans of yours and they're your biggest sales force. They become your sales force and bringing you more business.
So I'll talk about a customer I had once who unfortunately brought me in at the right time, brought me in as things were developing. They knew that they were going to make this acquisition. They had a strong culture within their own organization, and they wanted to make sure that the acquisition was done in a way that was positive. I went in and helped them create a plan for day one. What are the messages we want to deliver to the acquired company? What are the messages we want to deliver to our existing employees and our customers and our suppliers, right? Because I think everybody wonders if they've got a place in the new go forward, right? So developing a really great 360-degree kind of a communication plan from a messaging standpoint, including frequently asked questions. What do we anticipate that these people are going to ask? Now, you can't come up with every single answer in the whole world. There are always going to be these case-specific anomalies, but it's pretty predictable what people are going to be asking. Boy, my phone is pinging at me like crazy. It's pretty predictable what people are going to be asking as an acquisition is happening, and you want to be thoughtful about arming all of your people who are going to be on the front line of answering those questions with the tools that they need to make sure that they're answering in alignment with each other, because there's nothing sure to get that water cooler buzz going as having this person answer this way and this person answer that way, right? So you create the plan, you create the messaging up front, you arm those people, you have a pre-kickoff day, go over the talking points and talk to people who aren't used to doing that kind of messaging, helping them familiarize themselves with the communication points, but also just how to talk about it and the demeanor. Oh, and don't make up answers for questions that I didn't give you an answer for. Say, okay, that's a great question. I'll get back to you. So helping with that day one communication, but also then doing some behind the scenes work to make sure day one is a party, because you want those people to feel like you're so excited to have them coming into your organization. It's a party. We're celebrating. We're either going to break bread or we're going to have some cake or we're going to have something to demonstrate that we care about you as people because you're what we bought when we acquired you. And so I worked with the leaders to create that kind of plan, including a day one plan. And then knowing in advance, they were going to let certain leaders go and that they were being well cared for. You can bake that kind of messaging into your messaging so people don't feel like, oh, they axed Joe. It's more like Joe was pretty well compensated. So there's this sense of people were cared for. There's a people centricity in how the company rolls and baking that into the messaging. I mean, not sharing financials about somebody's comp.
Right.
It's more the attitude of how you care for people. And then usually there is a small reduction in workforce. So the other piece is warning those leaders I'm working with not to say things like there won't be a reduction in workforce, right?
There's redundancy.
Yeah.
We know that. There's redundancy. You don't need two people doing accounting.
But if you're signaling that people will be well cared for in that process, I love this contrast. I read about this company where the CEO was doing a layoff and he called his staff that he was going to lay off dumb dolphins because they couldn't outswim the shark and they were going to get laid off as a result. That was his messaging about why that was happening, that he had dumb dolphins on his team. Then by contrast, one of my clients went out of their way, and this was through the dialogue of due diligence where we were at the front end saying, what are we doing? Why are we doing it? How are we handling it? To be able to say, you know what, there's a firm up the street that just added a night shift. They're increasing their staff right now. I'm going to talk to them and see if they can come in to our facility and do a hiring day so that some of the people who were doing a reduction, we're actually giving them opportunities to go apply down the street. We're helping them with their resumes. We're helping them with their interviewing skills. That's like worlds apart.
It's not absolutely night and day, because that approach, even if it's not a wonderful thing to go through, you're still creating those super fans out of those team members, because you go, okay, I can appreciate where the company's coming from, because all right, I'm a redundant employee. It's just common sense reality. But the fact that the company is going out of its way to make sure that I don't miss a beat and I can still pay my mortgage and everything else, that's a cool company. I'm going to tell everybody about that. Yes, we got acquired, but you know what? It actually worked out better because I got a better job, I got more money, and everything is great, versus those people that were deemed dolphins.
Right.
You can certainly for sure bet those former employees are not super fans of that dumb dolphin CEO's mindset.
Exactly. I'm like, if somebody called my colleagues dumb dolphins because they were unable to outswim the shark, I'd be going, how long before that he's calling me a dumb dolphin? I'm out of here, right? Like,
Yes.
for me, that's
Gone. Your whole mindset just shifted. The whole energy of the company just died. It just died because everybody's going to be looking over their shoulders.
How you treat those people as they're leaving is an indicator as to how you'll treat anyone.
Yeah. I saw a company and I worked with the company and I helped turn it around. The management team was a husband and wife. They built up a decent business, but they had a ceiling of their skill set, and that's where I came in. New hire onboarding was a disaster. It would be like, Linda, welcome to the team. We just hired you. We're going to give you training on this new system. So we're training you verbally. No manuals. No, next week you're going to go live doing scheduling and all that stuff. So you're all excited. You got your training and everything else. Week 2 comes along and you're doing the best you can. You've got verbal training. So we remember 20% at best of that. So you're trying to figure this new system out, trying to do your job. And along comes one of the owners and says, Linda, you screwed this all up. We trained you. We showed you how to do it last week. Why did you make this mistake? But it's not in private. It's done in front of everybody.
Yeah.
What does that do to a culture?
Oh, yeah. It makes everybody fearful. It turns everybody on each other, right? It really creates a team of sharks. And they sense blood in the water.
And they were wondering why they would have people quit every 90 days.
And that costs money. I mean, at the end of the day, it costs money because you're not operating at full production. You're never getting people up to that peak performance level, right? And then all the time to recruit, all the time to train. If you quantify all that, it's really incredible what the loss is for turnover.
Agreed. So, Linda, let's get into some of the services that you offer companies. What is it that Com Extension provides?
What I do is first I start with consulting, right? The approach that we take is that we're a fractional member of your leadership team, partnering with leadership, understanding really deeply in a consultative way what's going on in this company from a comms standpoint. Usually I'm focused on some kind of change. So it could be a new strategy that's getting launched. It could be new technology that's getting launched. It could be new operating systems, new ways of doing things within the organization, any kind of disruptive change where you need communications to come along with it. I really hone in on helping companies going through major transitions like acquisitions and trying to merge the two organizations. So it's how are we managing? What are the changes? Where are the impact points? How are we helping the organization understand and adapt to that change? So in addition to the change communication, I can help with the reorganization, the leaders who are experiencing major reorganization where they've got new people coming into their teams and they've got to try and integrate and train those people and get them to be a single team. I also have a DISC certification, so I'm able to help leadership teams and some of those functional teams operate a little bit better together by going through a DISC assessment and helping them understand their different operating styles. In addition to change management communication, I also mentioned earlier that I do research around focus group research, and I can also do the quantitative research around engagement and how people are feeling, pulse surveys, focus groups, just where are we at? How are you feeling? And also to assess the culture, right? How's the culture now? How's the culture at company A? How's the culture at NewCo? What do they have in common? Talking with leadership, what do we want to keep? What do we want to lose from each of those two cultures? Is there anything we want to add to help the organization be more caring, more high performance, to have each other's back, to get excited about the future and maybe be more innovative or whatever needs a little goose in the culture. Building a campaign around how do you embed that culture? It's all communication, right? It's helping people understand what are the expectations behaviorally within this new culture? How do you exemplify those behaviors? And making it fun, adding a little gamification to the communications process so people are excited about receiving that information and learning and attending an event where they're going to hear about what the cultural expectations are. It doesn't have to be all droning talk. It can be kind of fun, right?
Sure.
You can do it over a long period of time and people can get prizes stepping in and being an ambassador on behalf of the new culture. So there's a lot you can do to make culture building engaging. And so I do that work as well.
Oh, that's amazing because that is so important. It's overlooked so many times because, like I say, I've gone through 2 acquisitions. I witnessed one, and none of what you just talked about was done in all 3 of them. They promised and talked a good story, but delivery was a little short to the story.
A lot of firms, especially in the mid-market space, where I find most of my clients are in the mid-market space, and they just don't have the staff to do that kind of communication work. They don't have in-house communications people. Their leaders, to their credit, they want to do the right thing. To your point, they talk a good story. Well, that's because they want to do the right thing, but they only have so much bandwidth, right? And the pressure they're under is incredible. So having someone who steps in and says, I'll own this piece for you. I'm going to partner with you. You're not off the hook totally, but I'll own this piece for you.
Well, and that's where your service comes in because, like you just said, they may have the right mindset, but they don't know how to implement because they've never implemented it. This might be their first acquisition, and they're going, okay, this is a good deal. I need this business, blah, blah, blah. But it's an afterthought of, okay, wait a minute. Now we have to integrate the two. Because the first thought is, okay, I can buy this business, I can expand, I can grow, and all that stuff. Oh, wait a minute. How do I make this stuff work? That's where each of your services is really integral in making that a very successful acquisition, because you probably know the percentage better than I do, but the percentage of successful acquisitions is much lower than unsuccessful acquisitions.
Exactly. There's actually a statistic I recently heard that was really intriguing, which is that over 45% of the acquisitions that fail because of communications, period. It's the failure to bring the people along.
And the ones that do create super fans because they're all excited about the new opportunity. There's opportunities for growth. There may be promotions. There may be a multitude of different things. And that creates energy. I've seen one where it was done correctly. And what that CEO did was they positioned the company to be acquired. So he wasn't the acquiring company. This was the acquired company CEO. What he did is he brought everybody in and says, okay, we just finalized being acquired by such and such a company. I want to take the time to and personally thank everybody for their contribution of making this happen. And I want to see everybody in my office one at a time. What he did is he handed everybody a check based upon your duration with the company, your contribution to the company, but it was all done in private. So everybody got recognized globally, which is important because you feel good. He created the right energy, but then individually he took the time, and this guy was a class act.
That's impressive.
Yeah, took the time. Linda, you've been with us for the last 7 years. You've helped grow this company. Here's a nice big check because if it wasn't for you, this acquisition wouldn't have happened. It was an exit strategy. He was brought in by investors to position the company to be acquired. He knew that he couldn't do that without the team. And so he empowered the team to make that happen. And he rewarded the team, which instead of keeping it all for himself, he shared it with everybody. I'll share the story forever because that guy was a class act. And I'm a super fan of him.
Yeah, that's a beautiful story because if you think about it, when you sell your company, you have now just secured some significant wealth, right? A lot, the vast majority of folks in that position go off with their wealth and exit stage left. They probably care about the people that help them get there, but they don't think about what you just described, which is rewarding them for the part they played in helping build that tremendous wealth that individuals now going to retire on and give to their kids and whatever, right? So that's a pretty impressive story.
So as we wrap up here, Linda, how can people connect with you and learn more?
Okay. So my company is, I have a website, www.com-ext.com. And there you'll find information about me, case studies, information. I have a blog on there, lots of things you can read. I'm a big believer in, if you will, paying it forward. So I am constantly writing and publishing The World According to Linda about how to lead with empathy. And it's particularly in these moments that matter to be empathy forward and helping your people through significant change. So I have lots of content out there and I hope you'll avail yourselves. You can also find me on LinkedIn where I publish all the time. And so look up my name and you'll find me and ComXT. And I'd love to talk to people if they have some things going on in their organization where they know they've got some work to do on their culture, or maybe they know that there's some change on the horizon. I'd love to have a free consultation to talk about where things are at and what you might do to approach it in a way that is constructive and helps your people through it.
Cool. We'll put that in the show notes because that's important. If someone is thinking of making an acquisition or their company is being acquired, probably in both scenarios, because there's got to be messaging for the people that are being acquired. And there's got to be messaging for the acquiring people. So that's great that you offer a free consultation, a conversation to talk about the possibilities of what may or may not happen and how you can help make sure it goes down the right road versus a left-hand turn that goes into a dead end.
Yeah, you lose nothing by having the conversation with me around just sort of brainstorming through what to expect. And if it seems like a good fit, maybe I can help you out. If it's not, you walk away with having had a great conversation about what's up ahead and how you should be thinking about it.
Linda, it's been great having you on the Business Superfan podcast show. It's been a great conversation, great nuggets for our listeners. And we look forward to having you on the show down the road.
Awesome. I'm super excited. This was a lot of fun. I've enjoyed our conversation, and anytime I will be happy to come back.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We hope you took away some useful knowledge from today's episode of the Business Superfans podcast. The path to success relies on taking action. So go over to businesssuperfans.com and get your hands on the book if you haven't already. Join the Accelerator community and take that first step in generating a team of passionate supporters for your business. Join us on the next episode as we continue guiding you on your journey to achieve flourishing success in business.